Betsy was the founder and is now chair of the board of the President's Young Professional Program in Liberia, the program that President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf mentioned last night. And Betsy, you've been involved for over a decade in how the outside world can help strengthen a civil service, in your case going from the US to Liberia and really committing to try to help the civil service in Liberia. So given that some of our audience are part of that outside world wanting to help, could you share with us a couple of lessons from your experience?
Well, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity, especially to the Ibrahim Foundation for bringing attention to public service. Mo has talked about it as the unsung heroes. At Emerging Public Leaders, which is the organization expanding the PYPP model, we say that public service is a secret sauce. And we've talked a lot about increasing quality of service delivery, but it's also about accelerating innovation, increasing economic growth. I'm so glad you asked about partners, because I think that hasn't been discussed yet today. And I have been partnering with the government of Liberia for about 10 years, informed by my work in the Ministry of Health, working with the former Dr. Kigali, the Minister of Health, and really seeing how difficult it is for a ministry with infinite number of priorities and not having the capacity or the skills to do it. And I guess the question would be to the audience is to really consider if you're investing and working with the governments that you've partnered with. You know, I think there's a lot of good intentions around signing an MOU with a government or putting in technical capacity to governments or training up the capacity of the civil service to implement your goals and your vision. I think what we've done with PYPP, and we're now doing through Emerging Public Leaders in Ghana, our second program, is really trying to invest in the infrastructure of the public service itself. And so what we've done is we've introduced a way to have meritocratic and competitive recruitment. And then once we attract young graduates into the civil service, really giving them the architecture of support that they need. Another thing that hasn't been mentioned is just some of the real basics. What does your work environment look like? Do you have a desk? Do you have a job description? Do you have a supervisor? Do you know that your work will be recognized? And so really taking through some real basics that can take someone who's not going to be drawn to public service for a job, and there are people who see it as a very stable, secure career pathway, but people who really want to have impact and then give them the support that they need to be successful.
I guess a lot of the international organizations and aid agencies would say that in the end, what they're great at doing is what they think they can do. And what they're not very good at doing is asking governments what they really need and delivering that. So, but, for you personally, has that been a journey? When you first went to Liberia in 2007, did you have some solutions in your head that you thought, or did you arrive and think, well, it's pretty obvious what needs doing? And how did you learn to listen differently and learn to work with the government rather than at it?
Right. Well, I was very fortunate because I was given the opportunity to work within the government when I came, and it was part of it was the first of several innovations in the Sirleaf administration by recruiting expats and repats into the government in a very open manner, and then placing them as assistants to the ministers. And I think that's really important. It was that role as an assistant and not an advisor. And when you're assistant, I was really there to accelerate the goals. And so I started to look at things differently. And I came in through public health. Now I'm committed to public service. And it's been so exciting the last couple of days to hear everyone talk about the importance. But I think it is really being there and observing. And it also, it's identifying those beacons of leadership. I happened to work for a minister who had a national health plan. President Sirleaf had a poverty reduction strategy. And so there was already a roadmap to come behind. But I just think being humble, being creative, being patient, it's taken us 10 years to really start to see impact of PYPP. I was talking to the new vice president earlier today, and we really hope that the President's Young Professionals Program of Liberia will be as much of a benefit to this administration as it was to President Sirleaf's. But that takes time. And what I would say to the partners in the room, it also means being less prescriptive about how to come in. And so we really benefited early on when we conceived of the program of having some partners who came in with really discretionary funds and really gave the program the time and the space to develop at a way that has ended up being a sustainable and we hope very successful program.